The Young and the Restless Spoilers. Billy's downward spiral. The once proud and confident Billy Abbott found himself in a place he never thought he would be, utterly lost. After being unceremoniously fired from his position at Jabot, the family business he had poured his heart into, Billy sank into despair. The weight of failure bore down on him, and rather than finding a constructive way to cope, he turned to old habits that had long haunted him. Alcohol, gambling, and nights filled with reckless abandon became his escape, but they only deepened the void within him. Billy had always been this way. When life dealt him a hard blow, he didn't stand tall, he crumbled. Instead of confronting his challenges like a man, as he knew he should, he retreated into self-destructive behavior. It was a pattern he couldn't seem to break, a vicious cycle of disappointment, escapism, and regret. Jill's tough love. Jill Abbott, Billy's mother, watched from afar as her son spiraled out of control. She loved him deeply, but after years of trying to guide him, support him, and clean up his messes, Jill had reached her breaking point. She made a decision that was as painful as it was necessary. She stepped back. Jill resolved to let Billy find his own way, believing that shielding him from the consequences of his actions had only hindered his growth. It was time, she thought, for her son to learn how to stand on his own 2 feet. But Jill underestimated the depth of Billy's pain and resentment. She didn't see how much he blamed her for the state of his life. To Billy, Jill's tough love felt like abandonment, a cold confirmation of what he had always feared: he was alone. And in his mind, Jill was the reason for all his failures. She had been too controlling, too critical, too focused on the family business to ever truly nurture him. In his distorted view, everything wrong in his life traced back to her. A dark plan takes shape. Anger festered in Billy's heart, transforming into something far more dangerous than despair. He didn't just want to escape his pain anymore, he wanted revenge. If Jill was the root of his misery, then she needed to pay for what she had done. He knew his mother well. She was a strong-willed woman, but she had one undeniable vulnerability: her heart. Jill had struggled with heart problems for years, a fact Billy had always been painfully aware of. At first, the thought seemed absurd, even to him. How could a son deliberately harm his own mother? But as the days passed, the idea took root, fed by his anger and alcohol-fueled nights. His mind twisted the narrative: Jill had hurt him first. She had broken him, left him to fend for himself when he needed her most. Wasn't it fair for her to feel the same pain? Billy began to craft a plan, subtle but devastating. He wouldn't harm her physically, that wasn't the kind of man he was. But emotional pain? Stress? He could push her buttons, manipulate her into a state of such intense distress that her fragile heart would give out. It was a plan born of darkness, yet in Billy's mind, it felt justified. The execution. Billy knew exactly how to get to Jill. Over the years, he had studied her strengths and weaknesses, often using them to gain her approval or forgiveness. Now, he would use that knowledge against her. He began planting seeds of doubt and fear, subtly hinting at threats to the family business, creating crises that forced Jill to question her decisions. He dredged up old arguments, reminding her of mistakes she had made as a mother, of times she had put her career above her children. Jill, despite her resolve to let Billy learn on his own, couldn't help but engage. He was her son, after all. Each confrontation chipped away at her composure, leaving her emotionally drained. But she never suspected the depths of her son's intentions. Why would she? Billy was her child, her boy, and even at his worst, she believed in his goodness. Billy, however, was relentless. He pushed harder, feeding on her reactions, finding satisfaction in her visible stress. It wasn't long before Jill's health began to deteriorate. She grew pale, tired, her energy sapped by the constant tension. Billy noticed but didn't stop. In his mind, he was simply evening the score. The breaking point. One evening, after a particularly heated argument, Jill collapsed in her living room. Billy watched, frozen, as she clutched her chest, her face contorted in pain. For a brief moment, panic surged through him. He hadn't thought this far ahead. He hadn't truly considered what it would feel like to see his mother suffer because of him. But then came the voice of justification, the one that had whispered to him throughout his descent. She deserves this. She caused this. Yet, as Jill lay gasping for breath, something inside Billy cracked. He saw not the powerful, controlling figure he had blamed for all his problems, but a frail woman who had given him life, who had fought for him in her own flawed way.